Bola Tinubu will be Nigeria's new president. Four days after voting, the candidate from the All Progressives Congress Party has won. But the opposition is crying foul amid allegations of voter intimidation, a surprisingly low turnout, and widespread delays. How free and fair was the election? I'm Andrea Sankey, and today's newsmaker is Nigeria's vote. Nigeria's ruling party candidate Bola Tinubu has beaten out 18 others to become the president-elect of Africa's most populous nation. In a country with acute financial troubles and precarious national security, analysts say this election could mark a crucial turning point for Nigeria. But not everyone is accepting the results. Polling was delayed due to technical issues, and some opposition parties say the vote was rigged, a claim officials deny. Here's a quick look at the results. A veteran of the main opposition PDP, or People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, finished second with 29%, while reformist Peter Obi of the Labour Party managed to claim 25% of the vote. But in a surprise victory, Obi also won Lagos State, previously a Tinubu stronghold. Let's take a closer look now at the vote.
Nigeria has a new president. On Wednesday, the Electoral Commission announced the results in favor of All Progressives Congress Party's Bola Tinubu. He is the fifth elected president since 1999 and won about 37% of the votes. Tinubu is from the same party as outgoing President Muhammadu Buhari and campaigned on promises to create jobs and help businesses expand. And it appears to have worked. But leading opposition candidates from the People's Democratic Party's Atiku Abubakar and Labour Party's Peter Obi say the election was a sham. On Saturday, Nigerians went to the ballot boxes. But the race quickly turned into a test of patience for the country. Technical glitches and reported acts of violence caused delays. Political parties were quick to complain, but voters were determined to wait to have a say in the future of Nigeria.
Some of us stayed awake till late in the night voting and waited to see the result out. Even then was trying to shower. We were still there.
The votes from more than 176,000 polling stations were counted manually and then handed to the Independent National Electoral Commission, which put the numbers online. But a technical issue became a cause for concern. Abubakar and Obi say the inability of the Electoral Commission to upload them onto its website show the results had been manipulated. Reports of voter intimidation and low turnout also worried the opposition. More than 93 million people were registered to vote. Just under 25 million ballots were counted as valid. The lowest turnout since Nigeria transitioned to democracy.
We are hoping that the INEC and the chairman and those people doing the election stuff, even the beavers and everything, we pray and hope they do their job very well.
The opposition is calling for the election to be scrapped, but INEC is pressing ahead with the release of the results. They say opposition parties should take their complaints to court. In the meantime, President-elect Tinubu will be working out how to manage a crumbling economy and widespread insecurity in a country that's becoming increasingly divided.
Joining me now to debate what this election could mean for Nigeria are, from Makurdi, Ier Jonathan-Ichaver, a parliamentary candidate with the African Democratic Congress; From London, we have Kayode Ogundamisi. He's a political commentator on Nigerian politics and international affairs. And also from the British capital is Philip Idaewor. He is the former chairman of the All Progressives Congress Party's UK chapter. Thanks all so much for being with us. Ier, I'll start with you. As an opposition supporter, do you believe Tinubu's victory actually should be challenged because of these irregularities that they allege? And is there any chance any challenge would actually change anything?
Well, absolutely. I think it should be challenged. I actually believe that it's an illegitimate process. It was an illegal process. It did not follow due process of the Electoral Act. The very thing that the government said it would do, that the INEC said it would do, it did not do, did not follow process of the elections. One, it is illegitimate. It's a government that in any other country that follows the rule of law, this election would not have been recognized, this presidential election. And they rushed through the results, which were forged. Many of them were forged. The evidence is there on video and everywhere. I personally reject the results of this presidential election that they have been declared. I think, of course, even as parties where my party, the Labour Party, other opposition parties were contesting the results that were being announced at the Collation Center, the refrain kept on coming from the umpire, the INEC, which we believe was highly compromised, that we should all go to court.
Okay.
Now, we do not have a judicial system, but of course there's a process, and I believe that when the parties, the alliances are ready, the Labour Party and so on and so forth, they will make their decision as to how they want to proceed further. But
Fair enough.
As far as I'm concerned, this is an illegitimate presidential result that has been declared. Thank you.
Okay, let me ask Philip. I mean, having heard that, did your candidate actually deserve to win?
I will start like this and say, first of all, I want to congratulate Nigerians. I think that what Nigerians, particularly the young people, have shown at this election is their capacity and their hunger and their passion to change Nigeria for the better. No doubt about that. Now, I think that at this point in time, if INEC had done her job properly, we will not be having the kind of contentious statements that we just heard from the last contributor. I think that my party, our candidate, ran, a very strong campaign, and they were very clear-headed campaign that they drove. The party members showed a lot of commitment, and our candidate showed a lot of commitment. At this point in time, I think that all one can say is to say, look, I support the kind of statements that has come from the president-elect, very conciliatory and very calm, for the Nigerian populace. Did he win? I think that if INEC had run this process the way they promised they would do, I think that APC stood a strong chance of still winning, and we all Nigerians will be celebrating today without all this contention. So I think that whatever complaints are coming are not coming because of my party's candidate. They are coming because of the sloppiness of INEC.
Fair enough. So sloppiness, but still you think the same result would have come out of this election. But let me ask Kayode then, because as we hear Philip actually congratulate Nigerians for their participation in this election and, for wanting change, I have to ask you about voter apathy. We actually saw the lowest voter turnout since the end of military rule. It was about 25%. And Tinubu didn't actually even win any of the battleground states. I mean, should he really be celebrating a victory here with so little voter participation?
Thank you. I think since 1979, Nigeria has increased consistently had reduced voter participation. I think it could be because of voters' apathy. It could be that people are quite tired, that promises made by governments are not fulfilled. The integrity of the electoral system is critical to the legitimacy of any government. And I think the incoming government should be quite worried. There's a need for a confidence building. It's clear that there's an agreement here that the election was flawed. We have over 170,000 polling units across the country. The question is, were the infractions significant enough to affect the legitimacy of the process, this current process? That will be for the Electoral Tribunal and the courts to decide. The issue of whether Tinubu was legitimately elected will be a matter of perception from the different sides until the courts decide. And I can see why the opposition will feel hard done by this election, this current process, really.
Okay, let me ask you though specifically about the new electronic voting system. Did it essentially just fail? But I mean, can that be excused because it is so new and these could be considered teething pains, or was there something more, maybe even sinister, behind the count? Go ahead.
So INEC are using this system they used it in 2 states across the federation. That's just 2 states. This is the first time they were using it across the country in over 170,000 polling units. And you're talking about a country with low, the infrastructure is quite, it's not anything to write home about. So it could be that, and you have to trust the institutions. And I think this is the call out, that if you need to build confidence in the institution, so it could be that the system failed. But INEC needs more reassuring of the participants, particularly the political parties, to clear their minds that this is not just INEC collaborating with any political party. When you talk about the voter suppression, I would suggest that it took place across all the political parties. It's not an issue with just one political party. Voter suppression were witnessed in the southeastern part of Nigeria, in southwestern part of Nigeria, and in Kano State and Rivers State. So it's across the political parties, but INEC needs to do more in terms of reassuring Nigerians that it's an umpire that is not biased against a particular party.
Okay. Ier, I think we lost you for a minute, but it looks like we have you back. And I wanted to get your opinion also specifically on the voter apathy question and how low the turnout really was. Because while the opposition is so passionate now about contesting this election and saying that these were massive irregularities that could justify them overturning potentially Tinubu's win, how can you declare anything when only 1 in 4 people, basically registered voters, actually came to the polls?
Well, I think the truth of the matter is that this whole electoral process and the lead up to it, it's now beginning to seem as if there was a deliberate attempt to disenfranchise thousands, if not millions, of voters. First, there was a completely senselessly implemented cashless policy, which ensured that people could not get cash, or even the transfer system, the financial system almost collapsed because you could not transfer funds. So that had implications for people being able to even travel to their polling units or to their polling stations, to their towns, to go and vote. Some people did. I personally think that we need to interrogate further the figures of the voter turnouts. And although people are saying there's low turnout, we're still investigating to see, okay, if people have not been disenfranchised, would the turnout be as low as we're saying? Because there was an unprecedented number of people who were first-time voters, young people who for the first time keyed into the process. And it was incredibly disappointing for all of us, to see INEC just simply, in literal terms, tipexing away all the pains we all went through to go through this process after they had spent 305 billion naira. I am personally even calling for an investigation into INEC. I believe there was a fraud perpetrated, and it is high time Nigerians stood up and demanded better from INEC and from its government.
Yeah, I should clarify. I mean, I've been using the word apathy. Perhaps that's not fair, because the claims on the opposition side is that it had nothing to do with apathy. It was actually intimidation and other processes they feel of marginalization for their lack of participation. But Philip, I want to come to you because we do have this result. We have in Nigeria now a new president-elect. Bola Tinubu, it needs to be said, is one of Nigeria's wealthiest politicians. Let me ask you what you think Nigerians actually read into that, and his reputation for being this so-called political godfather. I mean, his campaign slogan was actually, in part, "It's my turn." How do Nigerians see that? Particularly interesting for an audience outside of Nigeria to be explained.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, when you look at the campaigns, all the statements that were coming through at the campaign, I think it gave us a good window of opportunity to see what Nigeria thinks of each of the candidates. And I would say, honestly, and he himself, knows this, because at some point he came out to say that he doesn't go to social media anymore. Nigerians have a very negative view of him, very, very negative. And this is because of the role that money has tended to play in our politics for so long a time. The role of corrupt practices that has undermined Nigeria's democracy over the years. But I say that, look, there are some things we have to give to this man. He has been planning and he has been involved. He has not just been an armchair participant or critic. He has been involved in the process of Nigeria's democratic evolution for several years, starting from the military era when he was a leading light in the pro-democracy struggle, NADECO. And even after he returned home, he has continued to push the barriers for democracy in Nigeria. And I think that what we are witnessing, no Nigerian who wants to be proud of Nigeria, should hold up a flag and start waving or singing hallelujah over what we are witnessing in our democratic space. I think that what we are witnessing is this man understanding what the instruments of political warfare are in Nigeria and his willingness to deploy them. And I think that is why, he seems to have been winning. The point is,
okay,
are these factors or the issues that the tactics that he has deployed, are they acceptable to Nigerians? From what we have seen during the campaign, the answer is no.
But Ier, I can see you basically disagree with what Philip was claiming are his actual credentials, why he does perhaps merit this position.
We want to have a country, this is a country with a high demographic of young people. We want a country that is based and built on values. We want leaders who have the requisite character, the capacity and the competence. And I am so glad that our other guest has said that he has, in as much as told us that his character is in question. What I have heard today and what we believe is that he has mastered the art of basically corruptly winning elections. And this is what we have seen play out this time around. The question for me is, of the millions of youth, what are we telling our children? We're telling our children it's okay to lie, to cheat, to change results at election, and we expect to build a nation. You cannot build a nation on values that do not hold up to the test of time. You cannot build a nation on injustice, which is what we've seen play out completely. You cannot build a nation on money politics.
Okay.
They've been trying it in America for a long time, and we're seeing it right now. So we cannot build a nation.
Kayode,
it's too much at stake.
Is that fair?
Yeah, to an extent, but I think you have to understand Nigeria. When you listen to Nigerians speak about Nigeria, you have to understand the nuances. So, for example, when you talk about youth, there's this assumption, false assumption that all Nigerian youths think they're alike. So when you look about youth, you have to look about the nuances of youths from northern Nigeria and youths from southern Nigeria, and you have to understand the complexities of the country. For example, the emerging candidate, Peter Obi, is quite very well known in southern Nigeria, within the Christian South. His campaign is buoyed by social media and young people who are mainly from the southern part of the country. But when you go up north and you look at the voting pattern, it's quite different. So I think in this particular election, he has energized the communities and in the southern part of the country. So when you hear things about youth want a change, in terms of the voting pattern, it doesn't generally reflect the very loud voice from the South. You have to take a look at the complexities in the country. It is true that there is the need for a new change in the country, but how do you define that change? You have to also understand the complexities when you're talking about delivering votes in the country. So it's not as simple as that.
And I mean, very, very quickly, Kayode, I just want to pick this up with you right now before we move further with what you've just mentioned. You know, you also think talking about addressing the nuances that are so important to understanding the dynamics of the electorate and of the Nigerian people, you think the foreign press has really done a disservice, you mentioned before, in reflecting what is at stake and what's at play in Nigeria, because they don't understand the nuance. What disservice has been done?
I think the foreign international press has really done a lot of damage. They've actually contributed into the sort of the nuance about lack of credibility. For example, the London-based international media already called a particular state for a particular candidate when the official INEC had not declared that candidate. And these are things that have never happened in the UK. You can never call a local election within the UK, no matter, even if you don't believe in the credibility of the official this, and there are polls that are organized that could be quite misleading. So I think the international media need to understand the complexities when they're speaking about these countries. When you look at Syria, when you look at Iraq, these are the kind of mistakes that were made, where nuances are established as facts, it leads into chaos. And then at the end of the day, the country is brought down. So there's a need to really, really go deep and understand the local nuances within those countries.
Well, perhaps perhaps this panel will help provide a little more clarity as to how those nuances work and what the wrong impressions have been given or correct impressions. Ier, let me come back to you because I could see you were disagreeing with some of the nuances and dynamics that that Kayode was explaining. If you can give us a better idea then of what kind of issues were at play here, both we've heard a lot about the religious, in fact, ever-growing religious divide in Nigeria, as well as the tribal divisions. Ier, go ahead.
So I think a lot of the religious and tribal divisions, a lot of them are artificial creations of politicians. I mean, for example, the declared president-elect's wife even has been caught on video making certain statements about people of another tribe, right? So those are the kinds of statements that they use and drive these divisions. Meanwhile, among ourselves, we're getting married to each other, right? Even between religious, across religious lines. Now, the other thing that a lot of people had a problem with was the kind of ticket. Never, at this point in time, where we've had so much religiously inspired violence, especially in the Northwest, in the Northeast, and then some of it also filtering down to the North Central or the Middle Belt, which is where I am currently in, where we've had a lot of attacks going on, even on election day. There were attacks in my constituency where I was contesting. We could not hold elections in some of those wards. And as I'm talking to you, even yesterday, some Catholic charity aid workers were shot at by terrorist headsmen who are believed to be people whom the APC has been sympathetic towards over the last 8 years. So there are all those nuances, absolutely. What I was disagreeing with was this idea that Nigeria is so complex and that Nigeria is so nuanced that we cannot, we cannot appreciate those differences. I think we can. One of the things that we saw happen very much, for the first time, we saw young Nigerians, even from the North, pushing for the first time for on a very large scale for Peter Obi, the Labour Party. So some of those board units, they actually won. So while there is that nuancing, I agree with Kayode. I do not think it is as it had that much of an impact. I believe that the election was rigged. If we really looked at the votes, then I believe that we would have had a different outcome.
On that, in going into an election with that in existence, does the kind of breaking up of the two-party system and to have as many parties and as many candidates now in these elections and only a margin of, almost not 50% given still granting a winner, does it serve the Nigerian people?
Well, I mean, I think that what I say, diversity is always good. To have a choice is always a good thing. So people should be allowed to settle into whatever political parties they wish to follow. I mean, and to follow up on the trend of the nuances that Kayode referred to, I believe that, look, Nigeria at this point in time in our national history have become so intensely divided along the lines of religion and ethnicity. Never before in my adult life have I witnessed this happening. you know. And I think that is, yeah, I think, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm a member of APC, and you know, and I think that it is because of the attitude of government leaders that is what has driven this kind of narrative, and therefore, you know, the president-elect coming in, these are the two elephants I believe that he needs to focus on, and how he deals with them, how he relates with Nigerians on these lines will mean a lot as to how successful he will be. I believe that, you know, as a people, Nigeria is such a diverse country, no doubt about that. It's difficult for an outsider to understand the diversity question of Nigeria. But I believe also that if we deal with our religious and ethnic divides, if we are able to kill and remove these two elephants in our political space and make our politics truly driven by ideas, we will be in a stronger and a better place.
Philip, that will have to be the final words for this edition of The Newsmakers. Unfortunately, we're completely out of time. I'd like to thank all three of my panelists so much for being with us. Greatly appreciated. Our viewers, of course, for joining us as well. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter, and do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Andrea Sankey, and we'll see you next time.